Hello from Southern California during the Hurricane Hillary. We're still in the early parts of rain right now. I think the strongest rain and wind is supposed to be happening this afternoon. So I can still reasonably be on my balcony for a little while longer. But anyway, I'm covering this one because although Peter does ramble quite a bit and goes off target with he doesn't have a streamlined review of Swoop's video. At least his review is only 48 minutes long. So I'm going to extend his video a little bit out by adding some additional commentary because he gets a little flustered at points and it excludes some of the information, right? But I'm definitely not doing 4 hours like Swoop, okay?
Hello. How are you guys doing today? Okay, so no funny haha intro for today's video. I just don't think that it's appropriate in the context of what I'm going to be talking about in this video today. And this is actually a video that I've been asked to make by tons of people. And in all honesty, I just am so confused and just baffled, and I really, to be honest with you, I don't really know what to say, and I don't really know what people want me to respond to or to say. There's just so much.
You know, that's the thing. Like, he spends a lot of time talking about how he feels about this story. I think we all feel like a lot of children were abused and groomed and taken advantage of, exposed to inappropriate material, inappropriate conversations, and this is just one more twist and turn to the story. Quite frankly, from my viewpoint, I think that not only was Johnny stalking Colleen's husband and then stalking Colleen when they got a divorce because he wanted that fame, he wanted to build his own internet presence. I had a second point to this. It'll come back to me. I mean, that does seem to be his MO, is that he's following anybody that could potentially get him clicks. But he also was treating the situation as though he was expecting Josh to actually have a relationship with him, when Josh, who is Colleen's ex-husband, apparently was just trying to be a mentor and just be nice to him.
There's so much, and I titled this video something to the effect of this Colleen Ballinger ordeal just gets worse and worse, because it does, and I feel like with every turn, it's just more and more complicated and confusing, and I'm at this point where I don't even really know what to say. And this is, for me, and I think for people that have watched my channel for a long time, you guys know that I like to cover what I assume to be funny haha drama and lighthearted drama and flip a fan and talk on the drama phone and make jokes and things like that. This is not the kind of topics that I like to cover over on this channel, and I do think it's important, and I was asked by tons of people to cover this video that Swoop did and to respond to this video. So I'm going to do this video because so many people asked me to. It was yesterday I did a video about Jaclyn Hill and Ginger Ard coming out and speaking about Jaclyn Hill. And the video was literally flooded with people saying, you know, please talk about this Johnny Silvestri and situation and what Swoop uncovered in her documentary video and things like that. And so last night I sat down. Now I have to be completely transparent and say that I have never watched one of Swoop's videos before, but she has greatly earned a viewer over here. I said on my...
I'm gonna skip ahead because um, all you have to do is go check out Swoop's channel. She has high level production quality and a very, very thorough research to what she's doing. She has an entire team she's working with, and this part takes too long. So,
appropriate behavior with Colleen Ballinger when they were minors, and they've had factual evidence with this of group chats and the conversations that she was having there, and DMs that she was having, and private DMs and things that she would send them, and on and on and on, right? Okay. One of these people that came out and spoke, his name was Johnny Silvestri. And at the time that Adam McIntyre was talking a lot about his allegations about Colleen Ballinger, Johnny Silvestri came out and started making very similar allegations about Colleen Ballinger's ex-husband, Josh David Evans, and very, very similar. And it was interesting, you know, as a person that kind of watches this stuff go on behind the scenes, and I had included Johnny in when I say the victims' names and things like that. I had included Johnny in that because
okay, so here's what I think. This is my second point that I spaced on. Is that I think it entirely likely that Johnny's end game here is to actually distract attention from the Colleen allegations to throw them at Josh instead, thus proving his loyalty to Colleen. That's what I think is happening.
Had believed at that time, without doing my own investigation, and I not that he's watching this video, but to Josh David Evans, I want to say I apologize greatly. I should have done an investigation into that and looked deeper into it. But even just watching it from the sidelines, you know, and this is something that I do, and, you know, I'll see something pop up, and then I'll see something that pop up over here, and I'll be like, oh, that's interesting. Like, those kind of statements contradict each other and whatever. I mean, I think when you've been a drama commentary T-Gossip channel for as long as I have, it's just kind of like you kind of just see these things, right? It's kind of like the back of your hand a little bit. And what I noticed over time was things that Adam McIntyre talked about in his response video, and also talked about in the video because Swoop interviewed Adam McIntyre as well, was that Adam McIntyre would say something, and then within 12 hours, Johnny Silvestri would make a very similar allegation against Josh David Evans, Colleen Ballinger's ex-husband. And it was you could almost kind of like put them side by side, and you could kind of see it go on, right? And at some point, it seemed to me that it was kind of like this. Johnny was playing kind of this one-upsman game with Adam McIntyre about their allegations, and, you know, who had the worst allegations and things like that. And I think at one point in Swoop's video, I can't remember exactly what she called it, but she called it something like Victim Olympics or something like that. That Johnny was kind of playing this game of like who had the worst story, which is a major part of this documentary or this video series, which I call a documentary. It came across. It's almost 4 hours long. You know.
She literally calls it a documentary too. She says in her opening statement on every video that she makes documentaries. So I would highly suggest watching more of her videos because clearly you enjoyed the 4 hours that you sat down for, Peter. But every single one of her videos, she introduces herself and talks about how she covers true crime and pop culture events, and she makes documentaries. Like, that's the entire goal of her media production, and she has an entire team that does it.
It seems like a documentary, and it is a documentary. It really is, and and Johnny had said things to Adam about like his story not being as important as Johnny's story, and even said certain things to Swoop, who she is and I'm not sharing anything that she didn't say in her video, but she identifies as a survivor of SA and DV and things like that, and
if you think you have a thyroid,
he said some very hurtful statements to her and other people within those communities of, kind of like, well, he had his time to come out and talk about it, talking about Josh David Evans coming out and talking about him being a victim of DV with Colleen Ballinger and things like that, and basically saying that there was like a time stamp on when you could come out and talk about these things, and really minimized victims of SA, and saying that his experience of Josh David Evans allegedly using his end game being wanting power over him to be that was greater than victims of SA, and that would be kind of like just I think his words were cut and dry. It was so hard to watch.
Just so y'all know, for those of you who cannot sit through a 4-hour documentary, Johnny Silvestri was chasing Josh and Colleen all around the country, trying to get in their face, go to their shows, concerts, whatever. Because I think at one point Josh is in like a band, and this part makes me very uncomfortable because it was so close to home, and I'm talking like geographically. He flew into LAX and then he apparently had both of their phone numbers, but he made a big deal about Josh giving him his phone number, despite the fact that he had both of their phone numbers. Like, it was not a big deal, right? And texts both of them to please get him a ride down to Irvine. This is very close to where I live. Because Josh's band was, which I didn't even know they had live music there. I thought it was all stand-up comics, but okay, whatever. At the Irvine Improv in the Spectrum area by the El Toro Y. This is like my hometown right here. This is like my home base. So that makes me very uncomfortable that all of these weird ass people were so close to me and so recently. It was apparently pretty recently, which freaks me out even more.
His lack of awareness is just unbelievable to me, and he would make statements, which I'm going to get to in a second. He would make statements about things, and then he would smirk and he would smile, and it was really uncomfortable to watch. And she even said in there, I'm going to leave that up to a body expert to explain, but anybody watching it, he would make a very uncomfortable statement about something that had happened, and then he would smirk or smile, almost kind of like he was taking satisfaction in sharing these horrific stories, which has never been my experience. So I don't know, it just was unbelievable to me, the statements he made. She shows that, none of the evidence really added up, that he claims that Josh David Evans groomed him, that the ages don't match, and that he was over the age of 18 during much of the time that he said these things, but he claimed that he was 17, that he really couldn't come out with a definitive answer as to why he believed that Josh David Evans groomed him. And what it really appeared to be in the video when you watched it was that Johnny Silvestri developed some kind of strange attraction towards Josh David Evans, and that Josh David Evans, and I'm just speaking to this video, I know a lot of people take issue with him, and in all honesty, after watching this video, I feel horrible for him. I to have these depths of allegations go on, and Josh David Evans just passed 3 years sober, and I want to say congratulations on that. I remember when he and Colleen Ballinger got divorced and he completely stepped away from the internet and gave up everything. And he talked, to Swoop about wanting to possibly take his life and that he was depressed and all. I mean, to then have to have all of these false allegations come out towards him is just, it's just unbelievable. And at 3 years sober, and I remember myself, I've been sober 28 and a half years, and I'm actively involved in a 12-step program and have a sponsor and work steps and things like that in a 12-step program. And I can remember myself at 3 years sober, and that's a very fragile time, right? Like, you're just starting to get your life back. You're just starting to realize how to acclimate to the real world as a sober person, and to then have to deal with this on this kind of level. And Johnny's attitude to that was, well, then just delete your Twitter, they didn't talk specifically about that, but his attitude about if he can't handle it is just delete.
Yeah, but if you add up like everything that he has said, it seems very much like he was purposely trying to act as like a soldier for Colleen, to create this story against her ex-husband, who there are allegations that he was receiving some level of domestic violence from Colleen, which it resulted in the marriage. I don't know how much that might have been two-way, given the fact that he was experiencing alcoholism at the time. So I don't know. But it seems like Johnny actually was trying to become like a weapon, and I don't know if she actually asked him to do this like she did with Adam, or if he just decided to do it on his own.
Your Twitter, when this Johnny had basically been gunning him for months on end. Just countless tweets, and Swoop showed this in her video. So Johnny was one of these people that came out with these allegations, and like I said, I noticed that when I was watching it all go down, that it was just, I don't know, there was a lot of allegations without any merit, where on the other side, for the other victims that were, talking about Colleen Ballinger, they had a lot of factual evidence. That was one of the first things I noticed, was that Johnny was making these claims, but then he would throw up what he thought was evidence, but it didn't appear to me that it was evidence. And what was interesting was that in watching it was like all go down in real time. I think what really happened was that there were so many people, and I think he banked on this, that really were caught up with the story of the Colleen Ballinger allegations and all of the people that were involved in that situation, her family members and her friend Corey, that they weren't going to question him. And I think he banked on that he could just come out and make this claim without really any factual evidence, and people were just going to believe him. And that's exactly what happened. And it's really sad, that a man's reputation was defamed. And Swoop really basically says in this video that if Josh David Evans wanted to, she shows it, right? That he could take legal recourse if he wanted to. So she goes into this video, and I don't want to get into all.
I'd actually be surprised if he did, because he already has shown that he wants to separate himself completely from the situation. He's tried to be as nice as possible and apologize for giving his phone number, apologize for potentially giving the kid an idea that they were tighter than they were, and apologize that he had to move on with his life and get out of the limelight. He already made all the apologies, and he did it publicly. And one of the things that he's going to leave out right here, Peter, that you're going to leave out, is that Johnny insisted that Josh needed to give him a video apology when he had already given him a written apology on Twitter. It was already public. It was written. He had already done private apologies. And he was apologizing for potentially giving Johnny the impression that their friendship was tighter than it was. That's what he was apologizing for. And Johnny literally is acting like a jilted lover coming after this guy who never wanted to be with him, had no interest in him, but was a public performer. And so therefore it is not unusual for public performers to tell their fans, yeah, come to my show.
All the video. I mean, to be honest with you, so this is what I wrote. Basically, the video proved that Johnny's accusations against Colleen's ex-husband, Josh David Evans, were completely baseless and without factual evidence. And, I think she said everything that needed to be said in the video. I don't feel like I need to go over each thing and say what I was surprised about and, on and on and on. And in all honesty, I'm surprised by all of it. I'm confused by all.
Okay, let's stop for a second. If you want to watch the actual video,
what's up, Johnny? Happy birthday.
If you want to watch the actual video, this is the swoop video, but it is 4 hours long. I'm just going to give you the intro.
Hey man, today's a big day for you, and I just wanted to make you a little video to let you know that I was thinking about you on your birthday. You're old. You're like almost as old as me.
Johnny's vlog. You better subscribe to him.
Do it.
If you don't subscribe to him, then you didn't. And I'll spank you really hard. I told you no video version.
You said I could vlog.
No, come on.
Hi, I am Johnny Silvestri. I am currently 27 years old.
So this person is called Johnny.
I didn't really hang out or talk to Colleen unless we were talking about her ex-husband.
I have held my tongue for years.
I was personally affected by Josh's grooming.
People create and dedicate accounts to other human beings, and I can kind of hide and be a little bit anonymous.
I really want to come back. I just can't be here now. I gotta go find some kind of peace.
He tried to make it seem like I was a crazy obsessed fan.
Do you still have your text conversations with Josh?
That I can check. It's the whole reason the Trisha stuff came out this week.
She definitely sent him.
Which, by the way, Swoop was able to get both Josh's and Johnny's direct messages. And Johnny deleted several of his messages that were on Josh's file.
To that guy.
Sometimes I would literally just go to Google and type in Trisha Paytas nude. Live access has gotten revoked again.
I have a very, very, very firm stance on talking to anyone underage.
People calling out things that Johnny has done and him refusing to acknowledge them.
Oh no, Johnny was in DMs with minors? I was.
I think Johnny is the worst. Johnny actively spent weeks painting a picture for me to believe that I was inferior to him.
Just doing the damn thing since I was 17.
His dates that he's saying are lying.
Well, if Johnny is embellishing this stuff about Josh, what else could he potentially be embellishing?
This really isn't the story that I was expecting to be telling today. For nearly 2 months, the Colleen Ballinger saga has been raging across social media, erupting from a damning expose courtesy of Cody Tyler to a series of extensively transparent videos from Adam McIntyre, the surfacing of countless victims, and the shocking non-apology from none other than Colleen Ballinger herself in the form of a 10-minute ukulele song.
All aboard!
All aboard!
I've covered all of this and more in the previous 2 videos in my documentary series on Colleen Ballinger, but I haven't even scratched the surface. This documentary, part 3, was originally intended to be an update as well as a collection of the other stories I didn't have time to cover, like stories like how Colleen Ballinger throws a childhood cancer fundraiser every year, but the money she receives is sent directly to her bank account. Yeah.
Colleen doesn't donate the money, she keeps it, and she's a scammer and a horrible person. person. She's terrible, and none of you should be supporting her in this cause.
Or the story recently unearthed by April Quio, a former writer's assistant on Colleen's Netflix show Haters Back Off, who alleges that Colleen's racism on the set of that show extended from her demanding, quote, all that Asian shit be removed from an Asian food market, to allegations that Colleen said the N-word to her, a black woman, hard R and all. Classy. Now, this talk was also going to respond to the recent Vanity Fair article, which, in my opinion, delegitimized itself the second it chose not to reach out to any of the victims. I mean, while I've been writing this, Trisha Paytas has gone on record stating that Colleen Ballinger admitted to her over text that she did send Trisha's nudes photos to fans.
Well, it was confirmed she sent them. She sent me an apology on that Saturday after I made the video. I made the video July 3rd, and then she sent me an apology on, like, Saturday, July, like, 8th or 9th. And she's like, yeah, I was a coward. I lied to you. Like, I should have just told you the truth when you asked me about the photos. Like, I was a coward, and that was it.
I also recorded an interview with Oliver, somebody who received disturbing messages from Colleen's brother Trent, as well as Soph, who alleged that Corey DeSoto was racist. I even promised a bombshell interview back in part 2, an exclusive interview with one of the accused, who I will announce later in this doc. But by the end of this, I think you'll all understand why I've been forced to change the original schedule, because there's something crucial that we now have to do. My team and I researched, wrote, and scrapped so many versions of this documentary, planning to cover everything that I just listed, until something completely unexpected happened. I became part of this story. I was simply here to help accurately and honestly cover this story, as we do with the Swoop Doc, help provide missing context, and offer my platform in support to victims to share their stories in their own words. It's why I conducted extensive interviews. But instead of it unfolding like that, the way it should have, I was dragged against my will into a story that I didn't want to be a direct participant in, just a supporter of, and it all started with a 6-hour interview with a man by the name of Johnny Silvestri.
Okay, so that's the opening to the 4-hour. You can see the timestamp on this. It's less than 2 minutes short of 4 hours, right? And you know, the thing is, not only did she put in like 4 hours of documentary time, and I mean, she obviously did a lot of work on this documentary. I had to take breaks while I was watching it. I did some light live streaming while I was taking breaks. But obviously this is like the biggest breaking of this particular story. And for those of us who don't particularly want to watch all of the coverage of Trump's indictment every goddamn day, it's a little bit of a distraction, right? We get a little bit of a distraction. Anywho, I don't know if he's going to get to it, but she feels that she was dragged into the story because Johnny Silvestri basically weaponized Swoop to say, well, my interview is longer than everybody else's interview, so obviously my story was more important than anybody else's story. But the reality is, he was so difficult of an interview, it took her a long time to try and get any information out of him. And the information she got didn't add up. And that's why she took a 3-week break to dig deeper, to find out, why is this guy even here? You know?
By all of it. I'm confused by all of it. And I think that Johnny has a lot of explaining to do. A lot of explaining. Especially when you have come out for months and months and months and demanded explanations and responses from people. And now you're part of this. And a lot of what he part of what was going on was that he was sitting here talking about how adults shouldn't have friendships with children and adults shouldn't be interacting with kids and this and that, whatever, when at the same time, up till even just recently, and she proves this in her video, he has been engaging in very similar behaviors. And so basically what she proved...
Not similar. What Josh has been described as doing is nothing more than mentoring a teenage kid. What Johnny has been described as doing is creating tiny chats, I think that's what they're called, and doing the same shit as Colleen. Exposing people as young as 13, 12 to inappropriate content. And it's not the same thing, because Josh is not accused of doing that. He was accused of handing his phone number over to a teenager who wanted to improve his social media presence in front of his parents, and his parents congratulated him on getting such a great connection.
Says, if his definition of grooming by Josh David Evans is mentorship of a youth, then Johnny
At Urban Plates, 12.
Johnny is just as much or more to blame because of his relationships. So it's like absolute hypocrisy is what it is. And, like I said, the video was 4 hours long, and so I can't get into everything. To be honest with you, watching it just made me very, very sad. And I really don't know what to say about a lot of it. I think one thing that people don't understand when I cover any kind of drama, and I don't consider this drama, I've made that very clear on my channel that I don't consider the situation that's going on drama, right? I think it's
not drama, it's dangerous,
very serious, and I think it deserves a serious response. But in any video that I make over here, right, like in talking about somebody, one of the things that's always in the back of my head is what's their motive. Like I always ask myself that, right? And part of that is because in recovery, one of the things that we are taught, and I was taught this day one in recovery, is to ask yourself, what are your motives? Like if you're going to make amends to somebody, are you making amends because you really want to right the wrongs of your past, or are you making amends because it's selfish, for example, right? Like one of the examples we give is that maybe sometimes it's not right to make an amends to an ex, because are you just trying to show them that, look, I got my stuff together now, right? So, that would be something where we would question what's your motive. Or, for many different things in our lives, we ask ourselves, like my sponsor says to me all the time, like, what's your motive? Like, why are you doing this? And I think that that's so programmed into my head that, whether I'm talking about...
Well, hold on a second here. You just said that you're actively involved in the 12-step program. I feel like, my ex-husband says that he is as well, but he never apologized to me. Isn't that one of the steps, right? So why would you say I don't need to make amends? If you have a clear goal of a program that you're participating in, then it seems pretty simple that you would say, hey, this is part of the program, and I just want to apologize to you for how I acted, during this situation. And so that's your motive, is that you're completing your 12-step program, right?
Any of these people out there that I talk about, I always ask myself in the back of my head, what's their motive? Like, I'm confused. And so in watching all of this situation where, it was interesting to me in looking at And like I said, I mean, it really played out, to be honest with you, and I hate kind of diminishing it to this. Not that there's any diminishing of actual victims in true crime stories, because I don't think that there should be. And like I said, like, I think it's very important, and this is one of the things that we do in our book club, our true crime book club, is to make sure that the victims are honored in those stories. And I thought Swoop did a fantastic job of that. One of the things that is interesting is the timing of it. So so Johnny had a falling out with the Colleen Ballinger camp, okay? Then he had a falling out with this friend of his, this Tim guy, that I don't even understand the story fully, but it was somebody else that was part of all of this that was doing very questionable behavior as well. That was in like January, okay? And then Adam came out with this.
Tim was apparently like his best friend, and they set up a group chat together, and Tim would, they would like do like Zoom or something similar, where they were on video chats, and Tim was like passing out drunk in front of these kids.
Story, and I think that this is like one piece that people forget a lot. Adam didn't just come out with this story all of a sudden. Like, you know, people always want to say, well, why is Adam coming up with this again, right? Like, Cody Tyler came out with this story. Right. You know, this, and Cody Tyler can't shut her mouth, even though she's deplatformed herself. Cody came out again, I think yesterday, and made a statement about this whole situation and whatever. And I'm just like, okay, you deplatformed yourself, you need to stay deplatformed, right? Like, you've done enough damage. And that was one of the things that Swoop said at the end of the video, was that a lot...
Well, she probably didn't earn enough to get her computer, right? Isn't that why she came out with the story in the first place and re-victimized everybody so that they all had to discuss it publicly? Is that she's the one who came out with her story to try and get a monetized video so that she could earn money to get a computer, and it totally backfired on her because the victims were upset. They didn't want to be re-traumatized.
These people, these victims of Johnny's, that were, because he's stealing.
So when I stand here and I look at this, I think
people, these victims of Johnny's, that were, because he's stealing stories of actual victims and making them his own, or he's sharing their stories without their consent, and they're asking him not to because they're having to relive the trauma all over again, which is so damaging, you know. And I shared this not long ago in a video. And I think it was about this, but I was watching a documentary about the Ken and Barbie murders in Canada, and they videotaped their murders, a lot of them, and the things that they did to their victims. And the mother of one of the victims had to go to court and have it requested that the videotapes were demolished, because every time those videotapes were watched over again, even if they weren't watched by her or whatever, but every time they were watched again in a court trial or whatever, she felt that it was her daughter having to go through, even though she had passed on, it was her daughter having to go through the traumatic experience over and over and over again. And it was such a poignant part of that video to me, you know. And so when you take somebody else's traumatic experience, and he did this, and Swoop shows this because she had this voice message from this victim in there. When you take somebody's traumatic experience without their consent and you share that, like, you're basically forcing them to relive their traumatic experience again. And these people were asking Johnny to stop, and they were very afraid of Johnny, you know. To some degree, I have to say, I noticed that he followed me on Twitter. I don't know why, probably because I've been covering this Colleen Ballinger stuff. But it was interesting because all these people were like really afraid of Johnny, and I was like, if I come out with a video and I talk about Johnny, is he going to say things about me? You know, because Swoop said that at the end of her video.
Well, I think even if he did at this point, it wouldn't amount to much, because Swoop just ruined him. He's done.
Oh, she said, Johnny will probably come out with allegations about me. He'll probably come out about allegations about Adam. And I thought, is this person really that dangerous? Like, this is really scary, right? Like, and she even titled her video, hold on a second, she titled her video, "The Devil in Colleen Ballinger's Shadow, He Lied to Everyone," right? Yeah. So he does all this stuff, and then, like, at the end, Swoop said, just stop. Like, your victims want you just to stop. Like, now he has victims as well, right? And so I'm like sitting there, I'm thinking about, like, okay, all the timing of all this, right? And Adam came out with his response to Cody's video, and that was why Adam came out and talked about it, because new information had came out, right? And it wasn't like Adam just one day woke up and said, I'm going to come up and bring this all up again, you know? That wasn't the case, and I think people forget that sometimes. And so Adam brought this up, you know, and there was a part in Swoop's video when she was interviewing Adam McIntyre, and he starts crying, and in all honesty, you know, he was on a vacation to Paris, and I thought it was just really so kind of him to, like, do this interview with him, but he thinks it's important to set the story straight, and I understand that, right? And I sat there and I watched it, you know, and as much crap as Adam and his parents have gotten through this whole ordeal, you know, Johnny was talking about how his parents are running to do these interviews, and Adam's like, no, my parents have talked about that, we don't want them doxxed, we don't want them to, like, get public attention for this and whatever. And, you know, I was sitting there and I was, like, watching Swoop interview Adam, and it made me so sad, and I thought, like, Adam, like, is carrying the weight of the world in his eyes. Like, you could totally see it in a situation. Like, it wasn't like he asked for this, you know? I mean, he was a kid that had no clue what was going on at this time, right? And so, I mean, during a lot of this stuff, I mean, Johnny was working for Colleen Ballinger. He was a grown adult. He was 22, you know, like, I don't know. When I was Johnny's age, when he was saying that a lot of this stuff happened, you know, I had gotten sober, and I had a full-time job and a lot of responsibilities, and I was in a full-time relationship, I was living with somebody, you know, and we had a roommate, and we're paying bills, and I mean, I don't know, it was baffling to me, you know? And so Adam comes out with his story, and then apparently that prompted Johnny and reminded him of all this stuff that had happened, right? And then he was like, even though he says that Josh David Evans had his time in 2016 to come out and tell his story, but now Johnny comes out after all this time and he tells his story. So apparently there's no time limit on Johnny's story, but there's a time limit on everybody else's story. Okay. So he comes out and he tells his story after Adam comes out with his story. And his story is very similar to Adam's story, except for that he starts coming for Josh David Evans. Now, I have to tell you what's interesting to me about this, right, is that Adam is talking a lot about how Johnny was a huge advocate of Colleen Ballinger, and when Colleen put her apology video out to Adam years ago, whatever, like, Johnny even tweeted to her and said, which was not a real apology, but said, I'm so proud of you, and whatever, and Swoop made some comment in the video about, like, he was proud of her for sending lingerie to a minor and all this kind of stuff, and, you know, stayed very close to the Colleen Ballinger fandom. In fact, thought that that was going to be what got him his rise on YouTube, and it's very obvious that a lot of his motive for all of this was that he, you know, Adam talked about the fact that Johnny would ask him things about, like, you know, how do you monetize your channel, and that he was trying to come up with these allegations to get a following, and then he was going to come out and do a video talking about Josh David Evans, and that was going to be what was going to get him his start, you know? And I have to believe this, okay? And I'm just going to say this. There are a lot of people out there that believe that Adam got, like, a huge following on YouTube because of his initial allegations on Colleen Ballinger from several years ago. And that's absolutely inaccurate. I remember when Adam McIntyre, I kind of remember the time when Adam McIntyre came around and started making drama commentary videos about several different people. And Adam and I, until this situation, always got very similar views, if he didn't get less than mine. He grew very, very slowly, like many of us do. It wasn't like he did this video. I mean, I think people knew that he had come out with this video about Colleen Ballinger years ago, but it wasn't like the majority of his following was from that video. The majority of Adam's following was from Adam working very, very hard and passionately on a daily basis to put out drama commentary videos about many, many subjects, right? But I have to think that Johnny thought Adam put out this video years ago and kind of tried to emulate that situation. This is going to stop, hold on. Okay. And I think he thought he was going to emulate that situation, and then he was going to get a huge following off of these allegations. I kind of believe that that's what he thought to some degree, because when you go back historically and you look, like from all this stuff that Swoop did, I mean, he really wanted to be a YouTuber. Like, he you know, he even says in there that his parents said he was like doing the thing or whatever, right? And that's why they kind of like encouraged these relationships that he had. That's why he worked with Colleen Ballinger, on and on and on, right? And so that's really been his end result all along, is to be a big YouTuber or to big TikToker or have a big following as an influencer and things like that, right? I don't know why, and I could be completely off base, because I know that Johnny has made a lot of allegations against Colleen Ballinger as well. And I know he's come out and said horrific things about Colleen Ballinger. But in all honesty, the majority of his allegations are all about Josh David Evans, right? Somebody that Colleen Ballinger has no relationship with today, was gunning behind the scenes to come for when they were going through their separation and divorce. And Johnny was part of that, okay? And I'm sitting here and I'm watching all this and I'm like, could he still be a super fan? I mean, he obviously is. He is like a letdown super fan, right? And I think that one of the things that you learn from making videos on YouTube, and I don't care if you have 5,000 followers or 5 million followers, okay? One of the things that you learn over time is that you can have somebody come and watch one of your videos and disagree with your opinion. You can have somebody that just doesn't like you, right? And you can have somebody that kind of trolls you a little bit, and that's whatever, right? The people that really take issue with you are the ones that used to be diehard fans or really loved your videos, and for some reason, because of something that happened or something that you said, and there's not a YouTuber out there in the world that won't agree with me on this, okay? There's not a YouTuber out there in the world that will not agree with me on this. But that person out there that had undying love and support for you, something that you said, or you didn't give them enough attention, or you didn't respond to a DM or something out there, right? I've experienced this many times, all right? For some reason, the tables turn, and they are your worst enemy, okay? And they are gunning for you to completely fail. Well, that's kind of what happened in this situation, right? Josh David Evans and Colleen Ballinger did not give Johnny the attention that he needed. And he's obviously somebody that needs a lot of attention. So Johnny, here's your attention, okay? But that's obviously what happened. And, but I have to kind of wonder, was part of Johnny's motive, like, I can't believe I would be the only one that would maybe be thinking this while I'm watching this, right? Is part of Johnny's motive to take attention off of Colleen Ballinger and those victims? This is why he continues to say that his story is more important, and that on and on and on, right? To take attention off of the real victim stories about Colleen Ballinger and deflect attention onto Josh David Evans, to get attention off of Colleen Ballinger. Like, as a super fan, I mean, was this like the ultimate favor that he was doing to her? That he didn't care if he like died at the stake and looked like an ultimate fool? Because he had to know at some point this was all going to be exposed, right? He's deleting tweets, he's putting this up, I mean, at some point he had to realize this was going to be exposed. So was he willing to do all this at the expense of the person that he really was a super fan of, was Colleen Ballinger? Like, I don't know. Like, it makes me wonder, right? You know, and this is the other thing I want to say that's really sad about this whole situation and this interview and this 6-hour interview that he did with her, okay, where she literally asks him the same questions time and time again, and he will not give her a direct answer. She literally asks him for factual evidence time and time again, and he will not come through with it, right? So, and how many of you guys want to ask this? When she kept on asking him for the text messages with Josh David Evans, how many of you were thinking she was going to throw up those text messages on Josh David Evans' side? I think that's coming because she's coming out and doing an interview with Josh David Evans, and I think he's going to show those text messages. I think that's going to be a big part of that interview. But anyway, you know, one of the things I kept on thinking while I was watching this, and like I said, this is just like my true crime, you know, watching mind, that was that he's lied about so many things to do with, and this is why his story is so sad and so problematic, okay? And listen, the man obviously has some real issues, okay? I don't know what those issues are. I don't proclaim to understand what those issues are, but the man obviously has, and he is a man, he is 27 years old, okay? He obviously has some very, very severe issues. And he really needs help. Johnny, if you're watching this, please get some help, okay? Because he put out a statement, and I'll read it to you in a second, but he obviously doesn't think that he did anything wrong, okay? And she asks him several times in the video to take accountability, and he doesn't see if there's anything that he needs to take accountability for, and basically doubles down on his story. I mean, I think she proved everything that was needed to be proven in this video. Unless you can come out with factual evidence that's not doctored to show what you are stating, which you couldn't even state with your own words and your own stories. So I mean, if you had factual evidence, you would think in a 6-hour interview this was your opportunity to provide that evidence, which you did not do. Even when she responded or called you, and time again you would respond and didn't give her the evidence and doctored evidence. I mean, it's the thing is that is really sad about this story is, number one, he really diminishes the story of the other victims. And so it's important, and this is one of the things that I always say in my videos talking about really important topics, is we've got to stay on the facts. We have to stay on the truth, okay? And this is the attention that Johnny wants. So I won't be speaking about Johnny again after this video, because we need to get back to the facts, right? But that's the number one thing. The number two thing is that he made defamatory, serious, really sad allegations, okay? That were life-ruining allegations towards a man that no matter what his involvement was with this whole situation, and maybe we don't know that yet, okay? And I'm just talking about in the context of this video, like I said. I'm not a defender of Josh David Evans or any of those kinds of things, but in the context of this video, he did not deserve those allegations from Johnny, okay? Period. I think we all know that after watching this video. But the third thing that's really sad about this is that now all of the things that he is saying, and I think that Johnny missed this, right? Like, Johnny didn't have to, and this is the really sick part of it. There was something that was driving Johnny to need to have a bigger story than Adam, to need to have a bigger story than the other victims, to be the spotlit person in this story, right? So that he could build a career off of that or get all the attention. That has to be it, right?
Bother the bugs.
Because he was an insider. He worked for Colleen Ballinger. He was involved in a lot of these group chats and things like that. We know that now, and has been till very recently. There was a lot that he could have shared that would have been very damaging to Colleen Ballinger on its own. He didn't need to invent stories. He didn't need to come up with all these stories, but he did. And then what it makes you do as a person that sits here and watches these things logically is it makes you think, if he lied about all of this other stuff, then is he also lying about all of the Colleen Ballinger things as well? Like, what are we to believe, right? Well, what we are to believe is erase Johnny from the story and look at the facts from the victims that have come out with factual evidence. That's what we need to believe. So I just think, because I was watching it and I was sitting there and there was one part where she was saying, Swoop was saying things about, he said this about Colleen Ballinger or whatever, and I thought to myself, like, not as, taking a side or whatever, but I thought to myself, but how are we supposed to believe Johnny about anything? I mean, he lied about everything. So if he lied about all this, then are we just supposed to believe this part? I mean, how can we even believe what he says about Colleen Ballinger? We can't, right? So it diminishes even those stories. So then what we have to go to is we have to forget Johnny's entire story, and we have to go over to just talking about the real victims and what their stories are, and their stories are consistent and match, and they have factual evidence, right? I don't know. I think the whole thing is just really, really sad. And, the more that comes out about this whole Colleen Ballinger, Miranda Sings fandom, it's so confusing to me. Like, in all honesty, like, this is where I do think I'm kind of a little bit old for some of these things, because, like, I just watched, not too long ago, and this is no comparison, but I just watched the Slender Man documentary on Max. And it's about these two girls, and many people have probably heard of the story, but they stabbed one of their friends, I think like 14 or 19 times or something, because they were afraid that Slender Man was going to come for their families, okay? They were 12 years old, and they completely bought in to this whole Slender Man meme video game thing, right? And I'm watching it, and I'm like, when I was 12 years old, I mean, video games that we had were like Pitfall and I don't know, like ping pong, you know, it was on Atari and Nintendo Basic, you know, it was like, to believe in all of that stuff. I mean, we live in a different world today, right? And this is maybe where I'm a little bit too old for all of this. But to get so involved in a fandom, right? And then have all of these millions of people that are in group chats and all this kind of stuff. And Colleen Ballinger, who is so busy with all of this stuff, right? She's so busy with her tours and videos and interacting with other YouTubers and relationships in her life with her family and her boyfriend at the time and all this kind of stuff. She has time to be jumping in and you know, controlling these group chats and these tiny chats and all this kind of stuff. I mean, what is so obvious to me is this woman is so consumed with power, fame, and money, right? And all of these people, there are probably hundreds of victims, if not thousands of victims out there, right, at the hands of Colleen Ballinger. All of these people, tons of lives ruined, okay? So that Colleen Ballinger could be one of the most famous YouTubers with a Netflix show, best-selling novels, and millions of fans. It was that important to Colleen Ballinger, you know? And I have to tell you, I went back last night, and I went back to Colleen Ballinger's channel, and I went back to her very, very first videos, and I don't know if she's deleted videos, but when you go back to her very first videos, it's of her sister Rachel, and those are her first videos on her channel, and then there's like a Suzical, musical that she shows like clips of her behind the stage, backstage and stuff. And then it goes in and it's like pet peeve videos. I mean, she started on a very small level, right? And so she basically like was like everybody else. That was just somebody that kind of got famous and got power. I think the thing that makes me so sad, right, is that I can remember 7.5 years ago now, when I started on my BookTube channel. And I remember that I was watching a lot of BookTubers at the time. And I just was, as a reader and a lover of books, I felt so compelled to be part of that community. I never thought I was going to have more than one YouTube channel. I never thought that I was going to make money off of it. I never thought that I'd get any power or fame, which I don't have, right? That was never like anything that I thought about it. I thought I wanted to be part of this community of talking about books. When I started doing drama videos over here, I never once thought that, you know, I was going to have a following or whatever, you know, and things like that. And I still have people that are like, oh, I remember when you were at 20,000 or I remember you were at 40,000, right? And I can remember, and I said this not too long ago in a video, that I remember somebody in my early years of YouTube telling me how much money they made on YouTube, and I was like, oh my God, can you even imagine if I could pay my bills with YouTube? Today I can pay my bills with what I do over here, but that's not it for me. I feel completely blessed to get up every single day and do something that I absolutely love, right? And call it my job. I get to get up every single day and make videos and be my authentic self. I just shared in a video the other day that, you know, like 8-year-old Peter was in my living room, you know, acting like I was auditioning for Annie. And now I get to come on videos and sing songs from Annie to thousands of people that watch my videos. And that kind of cracks me up a little bit. You know, 8-year-old Peter would have got a kick out of that. And today I get to be myself. I get to be too much. I get to live out loud, right? I get to cry on video. I get to laugh on video. I get to share stories with you guys on videos on 6 different channels. You know, and I feel very, very blessed for that. Colleen Ballinger lost sight about that, you know, along the way somewhere. And at some point it became about power, fame, and money to her. And I think that one of the things that you see with people when you hear Johnny's story, he's talking about his parents saying, well, he's doing the thing. Well, what's the thing? You know, my dad always said to me, do what you love, but make sure that you're doing something that is also contributing to the world, right? And that's why I share stories.
Always use disposable.
That's why I talk about marriage counseling on here. My husband and I almost getting divorced and going to marriage counseling and saving our marriage. That's why I share about grief with my mother's passing and things like that, because I want to be a small contribution. I want people to say, you know, like, wow, if Peter can stay sober, I can stay sober too, you know? But for a lot of these people, I think the only reason they ever turn on the camera to begin with is for the money, the fame, and the power. And it's so obvious to me that Colleen Ballinger and her whole team of people and groups around them and all these people, they've ruined so many lives at the expense of her audience, that many of them are victims and many of them were greatly affected by this, and she used them for her power and fame and money, right? It's really so truly, truly sick. You know, and it goes so much deeper than just 5 or 6 people's allegations, which are very, very important and very, very serious and should be taken as such. You are talking about a woman that was so consumed with power and the abuse of power, you know? And I was looking at this last night because I remembered this quote about, absolute power corrupts absolute power. And so I wanted to look up and see who made that comment, or who made that original quote. And the quote is, "Power is dangerous. It corrupts the best and attracts the worst. Power is only given to those who are prepared to lower themselves to pick it up." And, it's the power tends to corrupt, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And it is by Edward Abbey. Power is always dangerous. Power attracts the worst and corrupts the best.
Well, she created an incredibly toxic culture that was abusive to children. And there were leeches around her who apparently jumped in on that. Johnny Silvestri is apparently one of those leeches. And her buddy Corey, he apparently is one of those leeches too. I stick by what I said at the beginning of your review, that I think Johnny is actually doing this to distract away from the Colleen allegations, because he is still a super fan and he thinks he's going to have an in with her because he's attacking her ex-husband, who she apparently asked Adam to attack as well, to go to various websites and find out what was being written and said and reply to it, and then he got sucked into it. That's part of the original allegations, right? So I'm fairly certain Johnny got sucked into it as well. But he is a grown-ass man, you're right. He's 27 years old. And he's been moving the dates around to try and make it look more convenient.
Also found this quote by Mr. Rogers, and, of the TV show, Fred Rogers. And the quote is, "Fame is a 4-letter word, like tape or Zoom or face. What ultimately matters is what we do with it." Colleen Ballinger has taken her fame, her power, and her money, and she's turned it into something really dangerous, and you cannot convince me of that otherwise. And Johnny, you are a huge part of the problem. You have minimized people's stories. You've abused their stories. You have been abusive as well. You have minimized true victims. And why? And many, many other things you have done, I'm confused as, Was this all for just financial gain or YouTube stardom or whatever? I don't know. I don't get it, But to end this, I did want to share one of my favorite quotes with you. And if you've never seen the movie Fargo, it won't make any sense to you. But the sentiment, I think, is important. And it's the very end of Fargo. And Frances McDormand, who is probably my favorite actress of life, is in the movie, and she plays a police officer. And this man has killed his wife and all of these people and has had all these hits out for people, and all these people have died, right? Just so they could get a life insurance policy. And at the very end of the movie, she's sitting in the car with them, right? And it's blistery cold day and the sun's shining outside, and she looks in the rearview mirror at him and she says, "So that was Mrs. Lundegaard on the floor in there. And I guess that was your accomplice in the wood chipper. And those 3 people in Brainerd. And for what? For a little bit of money? There's more to life than a little money, Don't you know that? And here you are. And it's a beautiful day. Well, I just don't understand it." I just don't understand it. I don't understand any of this. It's so confusing and sad to me. And so many people have been hurt by it. And I don't care what the excuses are, that Colleen Ballinger is afraid of legal recourse and whatever. Please just allow these people's suffering to stop. You know, Colleen Ballinger has the opportunity to do the right thing. Johnny has the opportunity to do the right thing. Corey has the opportunity to do the right thing. Just do the right thing. Come out and stop these people's suffering. Take responsibility for it. Stop your abuse of power. I love you guys, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.
He said he was going to cover it, but he didn't, right? So this is what Johnny Silvestri posted in response to Swoop's story. Trauma was used against me today in a way I had never imagined would happen. I was given guidance and a safe space to share my story. I was praised for being honest. Oh, I'm sorry, for being so vulnerable and honest, only to be defamed on such a gross level. It feels beyond explanation right now. I feel so hurt and disregarded. Swoop! You claim to stand for victims. And what you did today is the polar opposite. I don't know, there might be more down there. He obviously doesn't know how to trim photos, you guys. I'm sorry. Safety or the safety of so many others involved. You've completely shifted the narrative while making sure to promote your merch and fabricate a story for some extra revenue. I am so beyond disgusted by all of this. I'm not going to sit here and defend myself to every one of your heinous allegations about me via Notes app, but I will be making a proper statement regarding all of whatever. I don't know, like he can't clip pictures correctly or something. I don't know what's up with this dude that he can't fucking like clip pictures. So did you make that statement, Johnny? Where's the goddamn statement? You see, he turned off the comments because people piled on him so hard. Where's the goddamn statement, Johnny?